The night was already wrong before any of you knew it. Something passed beneath the wheels. Not loud, not violent, just a soft, certain resistance, the kind your body registers before your mind does. The driver said stone. You said nothing. In the back seat, your friend said nothing either. The car kept moving, and the dark mountain road swallowed whatever it was behind you, and none of you looked long enough to know. 3 hours later, you would understand what that sound was. You are not going to be ready for it. Caleb Merritt had spent the better part of 2 years trying to leave the version of himself that existed in Columbus behind. The job transfer to a regional logistics office outside Harlan, Kentucky felt like the right kind of disappearing. Different mountains, different silence, different ceiling to stare at when sleep would not come. He shared a 2-bedroom rental near the edge of town with 2 men from the same company. Marcus Donnelly, who talked constantly and laughed at everything, and Tyler Voss, who barely spoke but when he did, you remembered it. 3 men. Same parking lot every morning, same fluorescent office, same drive-through on the way home. The weeks stacked up like cord wood. The house smelled of someone else's cooking that had soaked into the walls years before they arrived. The kitchen window faced a ridge that went orange in October and bone gray through winter. Caleb had one photograph on his nightstand. His younger sister at her college graduation, squinting against the sun, holding her diploma like it was evidence of something. He looked at it most mornings. That was the whole texture of his life at that point. The house, the ridge, the photograph, and the growing feeling that the weekend was never actually going to come. Then Jordan Hayes offered to drive. Jordan was a local, born in the county, raised on these roads, knew which gas stations closed at 9 and which stayed open all night, knew which turnoffs had names that appeared on no map. He had a company truck, 4-wheel drive, and the easy confidence of someone who had never been afraid of a mountain after dark. He mentioned a place, a plateau 3 hours up the range, a fire road that opened onto a view that would, in his words, put everything back in proportion. They said yes before he finished the sentence. They left at 10 on a Friday. Water in the cooler. A bag of gas station food on the floor. Marcus had a Bluetooth speaker going for the first 90 minutes until the signal dropped and the mountain quiet moved in to replace it. The road narrowed. The dark thickened. Somewhere on the left side of the highway, there was a single broken oak, its heaviest limb split at the joint and hanging at an angle that made it look as though the tree was pointing at something below the road. Caleb noticed it. He did not say anything. He looked away and let it go. He would see that tree again. The first sign was the sound. Something moved beneath the wheels. Not a pothole, not gravel, not the standard percussion of a rural road at night. A single, soft impact. Deliberate in a way a stone is not. Jordan slowed slightly, checked his mirrors, and said it was probably debris from the last rain. Tyler leaned toward his window and looked back into the darkness. He reported nothing. Marcus laughed briefly at something on his phone and went back to it. Caleb turned in his seat and stared through the rear windshield for a long time. The road behind them was completely empty. No object visible in the red wash of the tail lights. No animal on the shoulder. Nothing. He faced forward and told himself the same thing Jordan had said. Debris. A wet rock kicked loose from the embankment. He believed it the way you believe something you need to be true. 40 minutes further up the mountain, the fuel light came on. Jordan knew a stop, a small convenience store attached to a mechanic's bay about 6 miles ahead, a place he had used before. They kept moving. That was when Caleb saw the light. far ahead, high on the ridge, where the road curved out of sight. A warm, steady yellow glow, the unmistakable shape of a building, a window, something inhabited. Marcus said he could use coffee. Jordan nodded and took the next turn toward it. 15 minutes passed and the light had not moved. Not closer. Not farther. Jordan mentioned this. Tyler said the altitude does strange things to distance at night, the way sound bends in winter. Jordan kept driving. The speedometer held at 35. 25 minutes. The light was still exactly where it had been. Jordan slowed the truck to a stop in the middle of the road. He sat quietly for a moment. Then he said he thought they had been on this stretch before. No one answered him. Caleb recognized the broken oak. They stopped the truck beneath a wide canopied tree set back from the road, the kind of tree that has been standing long enough to feel permanent, and Jordan cut the engine. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It had pressure in it. It occupied space. They sat and argued about what to do in the low, careful voices people use when they do not want to be overheard. Jordan said he knew the roads and should walk ahead to see if there was a structure or a stop just past the next grade. Marcus said he would go the other direction, back down the road, see if there was anything they had passed. Tyler and Caleb would stay with the truck. Before Marcus climbed out, he turned back and said something that Caleb would spend weeks trying to understand why he had said. He said, "If something knocks on the door, don't open it on the first knock. I'll knock twice when I come back. 2 solid knocks, one right after the other. Don't open for anything else." Caleb asked why. Marcus looked out the window at the dark for a moment. Then he said, "Sound moves strange up here." He pulled his jacket straight and walked back down the road until the dark had him entirely. Jordan left shortly after, heading up the grade with a flashlight that carved a brief white corridor in the trees before vanishing around a bend. The truck cooled. Tyler sat quietly in the back seat. His breathing had been uneven for the last hour. He kept a small prescription inhaler in his jacket pocket and had used it twice since they stopped. He said nothing about it. He sat with his hands on his knees and looked out his window. They waited. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became something longer that Caleb could not bring himself to time. Then Tyler said very quietly, "Did you see something move?" Caleb looked at the tree line on the right side of the road. For a fraction of a second he thought he saw a shape. Not an animal, nothing he could name, just a negative space where the shadow had been doing something it had not been doing before. Then it was still. Neither of them spoke. The first knock came 20 minutes after Marcus had walked away. One knock. Rear passenger door. Firm. Deliberate. As though someone had laid 2 knuckles flat against the metal and pressed. Tyler's hand found Caleb's arm. His grip was immediate and hard. One knock. Caleb's hand moved toward the door handle. He stopped himself. He waited. His pulse was so loud he could hear it behind his eyes. Silence. Then the second knock came. 2 strikes. But not together. Not one right after the other the way Marcus had promised. These came with a long pause between them, long enough to breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in again, as though something had knocked and then, after waiting, knocked again. The rhythm of something that was learning as it went. Tyler's grip tightened. Caleb did not move. The third round of sound was not knocking. It was a slow dragging across the roof of the cab, a single continuous contact, traveling from the back edge to the front, something being pulled, or something passing. Tyler's inhaler was in his hand, but he was not using it. His breathing had shortened to quick, shallow pulls. He had gone completely still, the way people go still when their body is deciding whether to run or collapse. The sound at the rear door came again. Softer now. Almost gentle. Almost rhythmic. Like something hanging, just barely moving, just barely touching. Caleb looked at the side mirror. The mirror showed nothing. Only the road behind them, and the dark beyond it, and the tree, the broken oak, the limb that had been hanging at an angle, the limb that was no longer moving the way a limb should move in wind, but swaying with weight, with something attached, the low, slow, unmistakable pendulum movement of something that had been suspended from the wood. He did not understand what he was seeing. The sound came again against the rear door. Patient, periodic, without any variation. A weight on a rope, swinging at the end of its arc. You are sitting in the dark of that truck, and you finally understand. Marcus has not come back because Marcus cannot come back. Whatever walked into the dark ahead of Jordan is not waiting either. The thing touching this door is not asking to be let in. It does not need to be let in. It has been here the entire time, since the wheel struck it on the mountain road 3 hours ago, since it rose somehow and followed the only vehicle moving through these mountains at this hour, since it found the tree and did what was done to it. It is not knocking. It is hanging. And in the absence of wind, when everything else is perfectly still, it is still moving. Because the tree is not still, and the rope is not still, and neither is the thing attached to it. Jordan came back at first light with 2 county deputies who had been called by a logging crew working a pre-dawn shift 2 ridges over. One of the deputies told Caleb to walk forward and keep his eyes on the road. Caleb heard the other deputy say something in a low voice that ended in the phrase, "From the branch." He turned anyway. He had to. What he saw behind the truck, suspended from the lower limb of the broken oak, the same limb, the same tree, the one he had noticed 3 hours into the drive and thought nothing of, remained with him in a way he has never been able to fully explain to another person. Not for the gore of it, for the geometry, for the distance between the tree and the rear door of the truck, for how small that distance was, for what the wind, even a slight wind, would do to something hanging at that height and that proximity over the course of a night. Tyler was hospitalized that morning. His breathing did not stabilize for 4 days. When he came home, he was quiet in a different way than he had been before. Not thoughtful quiet, not reserved quiet, but the quiet of someone who has set something down and cannot figure out how to pick it back up. Caleb drove back to Columbus 3 weeks later. He stayed with his sister for a month. He did not tell her everything. He told her enough that she started sleeping with her phone on the nightstand. He has never gone back. The question he cannot answer is the one that arrives reliably at around 2 in the morning, in any house, in any city, whenever something outside makes contact with glass or metal or wood, soft and periodic and patient. What was under the wheel? Not a stone. He has known for years it was not a stone. He knows what stones sound like. He knows what road debris feels like beneath a tire. He knew it then. He let himself unknow it because the alternative was to understand, at the very beginning of that drive, before the mountains closed around them, what was already following them up the road. He cannot answer the second question either. What was the light? What lived at that fixed and unchanging distance, visible to 4 people simultaneously, leading them in circles through the dark until the fuel was almost gone and the only option left was to stop. He thinks about it this way now. The light was not a place. The light was an instruction, and they followed it. There is a particular kind of fear that does not arrive in the moment of danger. It arrives afterward, in the ordinary moments. In a parking garage, in a gas station at midnight, in the 2 seconds between hearing a sound at your door and remembering you are alone. It lives in the gap between what your body registered and what your mind was willing to accept. That night in the mountains was not unusual because of what was in the dark. Darkness always has something in it. What made that night what it was is what the 4 of them chose not to look at, not to question, not to stop for, all the way up the mountain. The sound under the wheel. The tree by the road. The light that never got closer. Sometimes what follows you has been following you longer than you know. And the only reason you survived is that you did not open the door. Not on the first knock. Ask yourself, honestly, whether you would have waited for the second.